Okay, reading chapter 1, verse 5. Sri Adinath Shiva, Matsyadra Shabara, Ananda Bharvara, Sharugi, Meena, Goraksha, Varukshara, Valashaya, Karantaka, Shirananda, Siddhipada, Tarabati, Canary, Pujipada, Nityanath, Naranjan, Kabali, Bindunath, Kakashandishvara, Alama, Prahudeva, Godakoli, Tinchini, Banuki, Naradeva, Ganda, Kabikala. 5 through 8. These Mahasiddhas, great masters, have conquered time, death. By the practice of Hatha Yoga, roam about the universe. These Mahasiddhas, having accomplished the goal of yoga, have released their own personalities from the cycle of birth and death in the physical world. Being Jiva Mukha, liberated while still in the confines of Prakriti, their will is sufficiently strong to enable them to do anything, anywhere, at any time. This is one of the advantages of being beyond the confines of time and eventually space. Mahasiddhas are great beings who attained powers through the perfection of sadhana. In Sanskrit, the word sadhana means to practice, and hence the practitioner is known as sadhaka. What he practices is known as sadhana. The object of practice is known as sadhya, sadhya. And when the sadhana has matured, the results which are accomplished are known as siddhis. Often the word siddhi is interpreted to mean psychic accomplishment, but according to Raja Yoga, it means perfection of mind, and sadhana means to train and perfect the crude mind. As far as siddhis go, there are 8 major ones, which a sadhaka has to master before he is called a siddha. Anima, the ability to become as small as an atom. Laghima, the ability to become weightless. Mahima, the ability to become as large as the universe. Garima, the ability to become heavy. Prapti, the ability to reach any place. Prakamya, the ability to stay underwater and maintain the body and youth. Vashitva, control over all objects, organic and inorganic. Ishatava, the capacity to create and destroy at will. A Mahasiddha becomes omnipresent and omnipotent because he has purified and perfected the functioning of his physical and pranic bodies through mastery of Hatha Yoga, and has transcended the normal limitations of mind by traversing the path of Raja Yoga. To one immersed in the ordinary mind as we know it, such a concept as transcendence of the barriers of time and space would appear to be impossible. The human mind has its limitations and is by no means perfect and infallible. However, as the Yoga Sutras of sage Patanjali contend, the imperfect mind can be made more perfect and efficient through the practice of sadhana. Our present-day scientists acknowledge the fact that man is only utilizing 1/10 of his total brain power. If you consider all that man has accomplished in the fields of science and technology, utilizing only one small compartment of the brain, you may gain some idea of how much might be possible with the development of the 9 silent centers of the brain. As the mind expands, it increases in power and all physical barriers are transcended. Verse 10. For those continually tempered by the heat of tapa, the 3 types of pain, spiritual, environmental, and physical, Hatha is like the hermitage, giving protection from the heat. For those always united in yoga, Hatha is the basis, acting like a tortoise. Through the practice of Hatha yoga, one's entire being is made fit and strong as a shelter from the effects of the pains which come to life. The Sanskrit word tapa has two meanings. One is to heat, and the other is pain. Pain itself is a type of heat. It tempers and heats the mind, emotions, and physical body. Pain is of three types: adhyatmic, spiritual; adhivic, natural or environmental; and adhibhutic, physical. As long as we feel the separation from our true identity, we will always suffer spiritually. Adhyatmic tapa, which is spiritual, is that which comes from living without realization of the inner being and is essential, so we strive for the pure experience. Pain brought by natural circumstances is also unavoidable. The course of nature always brings some climatic or geological imbalance, such as flood, drought, earth tremors, wind, storms, etc., which affect the balance of the body's functions and generally disturb the normal functioning of life. Business is affected, crop growth is affected, and so are many things. Thirdly, there is no physical suffering. Nature continually tests the body, sometimes by an imbalance of bacteria, sometimes by accidents, or sometimes by mental and emotional shocks. Therefore, it is essential that the Hatha yogi prepares himself, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and psychically, in such a way that he can remain unaffected by these three types of external tempering. The body and mind should be structured in such a way that they remain unaffected by the mundane circumstances of worldly events. In this way, the body-mind becomes like a tortoise, which can extend its limbs when necessary or retreat into the protection of its hard-covering shell when threatened. The limbs are symbolic of the external senses, which should be externalized when necessary, but which, at our command, can be internalized and unaffected by the external happenings of the world. To perfect this condition, Swatmarama advises us to practice Hatha Yoga because this will enable such strength and control of the body and mind. The symbology of the tortoise is very significant. The creation of the world we know is said to rest on the tortoise. It is an emblem of patient endurance. According to Hindu mythology, when dissolution of the universe started to take place, the earth lost its support and was threatened with destruction. Lord Vishnu came to the rescue and manifested in the form of a tortoise, supporting the earth on his back. Thereby the earth was saved. Of course, this legend is not meant to be taken literally. It is the explanation of what happens during the process of creation and evolution, both externally and internally, and of movement back to the center of being. As the individual consciousness moves closer to the real self, the support on which the mind is dependent, an example, the senses and sensorial worlds, become less influential. Consciousness can fall into a void if the mind completely dissolves without having a base to fall back on. Preservation of the mind and body must take place when the consciousness moves into higher states. The senses must be conditioned to retract and extend at will. The concept of Vishnu is an aspect of existence which links prana and consciousness to the physical body and creation. I'm laughing because my earbuds keep falling out. I'm afraid to touch them because they keep ending meetings on me. According to the Tantra Raja Tantra, there are 4 types of kurma, tortoise, known as para, deshagata, gramanga, and grihaga. Parakorma is that which supports the earth. Deshagata, countries. Gramaga, villages. And Grihaga, individual households. Verse 88 says, he who does japa without knowing Kurmashiti, the position of korma, not only fails to get the fruit, therefore, but thereof, but he meets with destruction. In order to experience a higher or pure state of existence and still maintain the body-mind in the gross realm so that the consciousness can return, we have to be prepared. The body and senses should be trained in such a way that consciousness is able to withdraw and come back again to continue the sensorial experiences. Hatha yoga is the process through which the body becomes like a tortoise so that the external form is not the breeding place of disease and disharmony, but rather a protective covering. Verse 11. Hatha yoga is the greatest secret of the yogis who wish to attain perfection, siddhi. Indeed, to be fruitful, it must be kept secret. Revealed, it becomes powerless. This sloka is typical of any yogic shastra expounding higher knowledge. An example, the science should be kept to oneself. Whatever a sadhaka gains or achieves during the period of sadhana, should be a private affair. This may seem a little out of context as the book itself appears to be disclosing the secrets of the practices, but in fact, when you learn under the guidance of a guru, you will find that Swatmahara has only stated the bare essentials as guidelines for the practice of asana, etc., so that the science of Hatha yoga will be preserved for humanity. Originally, Goraknath had written much about Hatha yoga in the form of prose and poetry. Traditionally, a shastra must be in Sanskrit. Local dialects are not accepted as authentic works. Therefore, Swatmarama is continuing Goraknath's original work. What has been given here is a system of Hatha yoga without too much elucidation. It is left up to the practitioner to find out from his guru what is actually involved. Swatmarama is not advocating the performance of a particular sadhana. He merely noted down the system and outlined the correct methods of practice. Your specific sadhana is between you and your guru. When your sadhana is mastered, the result is siddhi or perfection, and whatever you have managed to perfect is your own attainment and what the guru has enabled you to become. Goraknath used to tell his disciples that Hatha yoga is the science of the subtle body. It is the means by which the body's energy can be controlled. He said that Hatha is the means of controlling the two main energy channels of the positive and negative currents. The positive, negative nature of energy exists in every part of our being. Hatha yoga not only brings a balance in the energy, but also in the duality of the mind and between the lower nature and the higher mind, between the individual soul and the universal spirit. It involves yourself and the Atma. So why bring anyone else into the picture? In the Shiva Samhita, it says that the practitioner should keep his practice secret, just as a virtuous wife keeps her intimate relationships between herself and her husband quiet. This develops the love between husband and wife. Similarly, if you have any respect for your own beloved, the pure Atma, whatever experience and power you are bestowed with is your own affair and has to be cultivated privately. This is a purely logical and scientific process. When you have a small light burning in a room at night, the whole room is illumined. If you take your little light outside into the vast open space, the light is engulfed by the night and absorbed in the darkness. The same principle applies to the power gained through your sadhana. The power may enlighten your own consciousness, but displayed and dissipated in the magnitude of the outside world, it loses strength. Sadhana is like a seed, and cities are like flowers. If you want a seed to germinate, you have to leave it in the soil. If you dig it up to show your friends and neighbors how it is progressing, it will not grow any further, it will die. Likewise, the city is just the germinating point of your sadhana. If you are trying to cultivate fully bloomed awareness of Atma, you will have to act properly. Sadhana is not a biology lesson where you dig up the plant to investigate its roots. Sadhana involves the growth of your own spirit, and it is like the process of giving birth. When a fetus is growing in the womb, we cannot peep into the intermediate stage of its development. We have to wait for the final product. Keeping sadhana in cities undercover has a powerful psychological effect. If you talk about and display your attainments, the sense of I or ego becomes very acute. I have achieved. I had this experience, or I can do this. If you want to experience cosmic consciousness, ego or ahamkara is the greatest barrier. Cities never last long. They are impermanent. After a certain stage of evolution, they disappear. If you associate yourself with the feeling that I have perfected this and that, you will expect yourself to be able to perform a great feat and so will others. You will be living to meet the expectation of others, otherwise they will not think that you are great. One day when the cities leave you, how are you going to cope with the situation? In spiritual life, it is very important to keep the ego under control. Most of the great saints and siddhas who have powers rarely displayed them. Only the people who lived very close to them knew their greatness. Many siddhas who did display their powers were persecuted. Example, Christ. Therefore, for your own good and the good of others, it is said, as a warning rather than mere advice, that sadhana and siddhis are to be kept secret. I'm going to pause there and give us a moment to breathe and say anything. And then we will do breath and our 20-minute meditation. Okay. Well, if we don't have anything to share, if you do, you can unmute. Otherwise, we can set up and do a few rounds of alternate nostril breathing. And we left off, just for notes, on we read through verse 11, so we will start verse 12 on Monday. I'm just having a nice morning stretch, and then we will take 3 breaths in through our nose and out through our nose. Just beginning to connect with our breath. Trying to slow the mind thoughts down. Try not to attach yourself to any of them. Beginning to manipulate the breath longer into the low belly. Exhaling it all out. Trying to create slow, deep breaths in. Long, completely exhales out. And then beginning alternate nostril breathing, closing right nostril with your right thumb, inhaling through your left nostril. Close your left with your right ring finger. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Doing this 5 more rounds on your own breath. When you're done, you'll exhale out through your left nostril. Taking your time to finish and then settling into your meditation for today. Setting your intention, possibly dedicating the meditation practice to someone or something. Go ahead and set the timer. Bringing your hands to clasp. Namaste. Have a beautiful day, everybody, and a good weekend. See you on Monday.